Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Greetings, fans of oxymorons, hyperbole, and non sequiturs alike. Welcome to another episode of Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. We're the only choice in tech podcasts, and that's a well-known secret. Now, we know that you have a million things to do, of course, so it's only natural that you should have landed here with us. Thanks for prioritising. Well done, you. And well done, Matt. Back in the box seat after a globe-trotting jaunt. Welcome back to the microphone.
Thank you very much. It's always nice to come back to Australia, but it is fascinating being in Japan. Obviously, lots of technology. Can't help myself looking at technology. Yeah. The vending machines. I've never quite worked out the fascination with vending machines in Japan.
They've got everything in vending machines, haven't they?
They've got everything, but they're also everywhere. There are more vending machines per capita in Japan than anywhere else in the world, but not just a few more than double per capita. So there's one vending machine per 23 people in Japan. Number 2 on the list is America with about 45 people per vending machine. So they are absolutely...
Yeah, and we're not just talking about drinks and snacks and stuff. We're talking about the little toys and just ridiculous things.
You name it. Underwear you can buy from a vending machine, hot food, cold food, alcohol, which I found interesting. I haven't seen that one before, so I don't know how you verify your age, but in Japan, people are incredibly honest, so maybe you don't need to worry about someone having to verify the age, because if someone was underage, they wouldn't dare think about buying alcohol because it's not the right thing to do. But it is fascinating. But some of the things that we expect to see, you go to the airport in Australia and you see a vending machine with chocolate and chips and that type of thing. You actually have trouble finding a vending machine with some little snacks because there are so many other things filling up the vending machine. You go, I just want a little chocolate.
Too many distracting vending machines.
There are.
To
everywhere.
find your,
but even in high-class hotels where you think you go to reception and just ask for something, there's a vending machine next to the check-in counter. So they are absolutely everywhere. Of course, the other thing is toilet seats. I have had the embarrassing situation, not on this trip, but on a previous trip to Korea, where I went into the toilet and then I was looking for the good old-fashioned flush button. I'm trying to work out reading the Korean writing.
Good luck.
That's exactly it.
So many buttons.
In the end, I pressed something that looked like the picture might be that, but that was the bidet. So I've got this stream spraying against the opposite wall. I'm going, it looks like I've had a terrible mess in here. It looks like I've gone everywhere. So that was always fun.
Turn it off? But does it just have an on button?
Well, the funny part was there are times when you're looking for the button on there and then you realise that the cistern has got an old-fashioned button and you go, I've got all these electronics here and I've just got to press the button. But, of course, the lifting of the toilet seats, absolutely needed in Australia, where every female complains about the male not lifting or something, some problem with the lifting of the toilet seat. But there are ones that automatically lift when you walk
Automated.
in. I don't know whether it detects the sex of the person walking in and lifts appropriately depending
Makes
on
an assumption.
the sex. Yeah, that's right. So that would make sense. I did see one I found intriguing, which was a remote control function, as in the remote control device for the toilet you could lift up and take out to the lounge room with you.
Right.
Which I didn't quite understand, why I would need a remote control for the toilet while sitting in the lounge room.
So you can surprise the next person to come in.
That was the only thing I could think of. That was the best I could come up with. And robot waiters. Went to a few places with robot waiters,
cool.
which, of course, aren't exclusive to Japan, but I saw more of them in Japan than I have seen in other locations. And they seem to be just doing some helpful things, such as you load up, a waiter would load up a few plates in there and then that would take them back to the kitchen. So just some simple things like that. And again, I felt like it was a bit of technology for the sake of technology. What the heck? Of course, the one thing that does stand out to me as well in Japan, on the streets of Japan, is a lack of EVs. And I think that's rather driven by the fact that Toyota is such a big player in Japan. People love Toyota. It's obviously they're very proud of Toyota. And, of course, Toyota hasn't got much in the way of an EV solution. So on the streets compared to other countries, so even in Korea, for example, you see lots of EVs because you've got Hyundai there who have got a pretty good EV strategy. So that certainly stood out. I was actually trying to spot the EV at one stage, and we did see a couple of Teslas, but that was about it over a 2-week time frame. So quite fascinating. But anyway, always fun in Japan, always interesting, always clean. It's fascinating. We went on a couple of gondolas and zip lines, and so you're looking down at different parts from above, And even the dirt was clean. It was just everywhere was so
Polished
clean.
dirt.
Yeah, almost. So,
nice.
quite fascinating.
Well, it's interesting talking about the robot waders, though. I think we're still probably in the infancy of robot waiting, but it's those early adopters that are going to be quick to pick up the next generation or the generations that succeed from the one that we've got right now, and where other places will just be picking up the early stages. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. And they aren't that advanced at this stage, but they're helping the whole training concept. It seemed to me that the robot waders that I saw in operation, and I didn't go and have a detailed look at them, but it just looked like they had a spot to go to, in other words, the kitchen, and they just had some sensors. So sometimes they'd be going along and they'd stop because there was a person in front of them, and then they'd keep moving on. So I assume they've got some sort of pre-programmed path, so they're not really that intelligent, and they just go from a table where the plates are loaded up and off they go. So a basic level, but you're right. Then when the next version comes out, or the next upgrade, or the next firmware upgrade, then they'll be there at the forefront, and other countries will be lagging behind, just driving their EVs.
Now, in today's episode, we're checking out how robot dogs are saving our hazelnuts. Stay tuned for a surprising development in Aussie agriculture there. And if you're ever envious of how Tony Stark of Iron Man fame went about his daily business, we'll give you a glimpse into the future with some new smart glasses that are set to revolutionise the entire tech culture. And blow me down and cover me with solar panels. Developments in solar tech are going crazy right now and may just change the entire look of the built environment. But let's start today's episode with a glimpse into pet ownership of the future. The loss of a favourite pet is, for some, so unbearable that moving on is just completely unthinkable. And that is some true love right there. For those people, the opportunity to clone their pup or their tabby cat has been a reality since 2001 of all times. Well, did you know that you could even clone your pets at all these days? It's certainly not a well-known option, and it's pretty expensive. But folks, it is an option. The question is, would you clone your pet to avoid that final farewell, Matt?
I started thinking about this a little bit differently about cloning pets, because we've got the Melbourne Cup that's just been run recently. First Tuesday in November, stops the nation. And I started thinking about thoroughbred racing. Now, there are very specific rules about thoroughbred racing and about qualification of those horses, and that breeding process has improved. So I went back and had a quick look. Back in 1861, the first Melbourne Cup was run. Archer, of course, most people in Australia would know Archer won the first Melbourne Cup. 3 minutes and 52 seconds was the time that Archer ran that cup in.
3 minutes and 52
seconds. So go to this year, Knight's Choice one, and it wasn't a record time, but it was still a reasonable, or close to the record, 3 minutes and 19 seconds. So over that 1861 to 2024, 14% improvement. Now, that's been through breeding and also training techniques. You can imagine they've both improved over the years. So that whole concept of breeding has helped improve the times, the running times there. And we see that with anything that involves humans. If we look at the Olympics, look at records for various events there, you see those sort of similar improvements. Maybe the breeding's not so specific in humans, but maybe it is a little bit sometimes. Then you start to think about cloning, and I started to think, well, famous Phar-Lap, it had a heart 1.5 times larger than an average thoroughbred's heart. So that's probably got to be a bit of an advantage. Let's clone Phar-Lap. Or Makybe Diva, never has any other horse won 3 Melbourne Cups in a row. So, in fact, we should have an omen bet. The first year, 2003, when Makybe Diva won the Cup, our youngest daughter was born on that day. If ever there was an omen bet, having a horse named Diva when your daughter was born on that same day, we didn't. And we didn't do it the next 2 years when Makybe Diva won it as well. Or, of course, you've got things like Black Caviar, undefeated 25 race record. So surely you'd think, cloning Black Caviar, cloning something like that, is there an attraction in that? Yeah. But then would you take out the breeding process that's improved these horses over those years? So it's a fine line. You're not going to do it in thoroughbred racing. The rules are there such that you can't have cloning in thoroughbred racing, but you can have cloning now, and obviously the whole world changed on the 5th of July 1996.
And now I wonder how the processes have changed, because I know when we cloned the first mammal, That was Dolly the sheep back, I think it was about 1997.
5th of July 1996.
6, there we go.
Yep.
Yeah, that the offspring was born, but it very rapidly contracted some older diseases like arthritis. I wonder if that's still an issue.
I don't know that it is an issue, but what is an issue is when people are cloning their pets, cats, dogs, horses, they're finding that they're not the same, which makes sense. People are born as twins, and I remember I was at school with a set of twins, and I was friends with those two twins, but they were definitely different. They had different personalities, and obviously it's hard to subject two individuals to an identical environment forever. Nature versus nurture, the old
argument. It even
argument.
happens within the womb. So one twin will lean on the other's umbilical cord just a little bit more and
Just to
starve
show
them
boss.
a little bit of food and a little bit of oxygen, and that'll change their development. So when they're born, they're not really identical.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, I think, that you have twins who have a similar raising and they're still different. You take a pet cat, though, or a pet dog, let's take a pet dog, that's born 10 years after, but it's a twin, then definitely the environment's going to be different. The person, the pet owner, will have changed in that 10-year time frame. Maybe they had kids that were young the first time around. Now the kids are a bit older. They're going to treat that dog a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's all down to the experiences of both individuals in the relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. But having said all that, there's a company in America that's doing this right now. You'll pay a minimum $50,000 to have your pet, cat, dog, horse cloned. You need some material that's no older than 5 days after the animal has died. And the ear apparently is quite good.
Oh, right.
The cells of the ear are preserved better than other cells or many other cells of the body. Supposedly, I can't quote that medically. I just read the brochure on cloning. So I was a bit worried when my wife started cutting my ear the other day. So. But they do that. They send that little bit of ear in, and they'll produce an animal, as I said, $50,000, that'll be a twin, but then it's up to the person to see how they interact with it. It's not going to come with all the memories. Oh, remember how you used to do this when you ran after this particular ball that I threw after you?
You're really starting from scratch with all the training and all the personality features and all that sort of stuff.
And if your first pet died of a particular disease, or your first pet had some problem, maybe arthritis, as you said before, then it's a pretty good chance that this one's going to have pretty much the same problem the last one had pretty much at the same time. Again, different environment, things might be a little bit different, but it's obviously important enough for many people that this is a viable business, and they're shipping these animals around the world. Not many other places around the world are doing this, none that I know off the top of my head. So people that have got a particular interest in their pet living on that live outside of America, well, they're shipping the materials to America and they're having the pet cloned and then getting that pet back. So I don't know if the $50,000 includes freight, because I can't imagine it's that cheap to send that cloned animal. I'm not sure how old it is when you get it. That'd be interesting as well. Do you get it when it's a day old, a week old, a month old?
Well, and the other thing is that you spend so much money, and it is a real roll of the dice as to the features should look very similar, but then even those can change environmentally as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's fascinating, but this is done from a vanity perspective. Can I go that far as to say that?
Yeah, for sure.
It's adding to scientific research, but I just do wonder about the scientific research, about the ethics around that. Do we get to the stage where we've got some cows, rather than keep using breeding to produce cows that produce more milk? For example, if you're after a dairy cow, do we just go, that's it, that's how we want it now, just keep cloning that one cow? Well, that doesn't happen at the moment. People are worried about genetically modified food. Would they be worried about cloned animals, the meat or the milk, for example, from a cloned cow?
A lot of questions up there, a lot of ethics involved.
One of the things we do find on this show is that we do often push the boundaries, or not that we're pushing the boundaries, but science and technology is pushing the boundaries of legal, of regulatory, of ethics. We're not here to talk about that. We're just here to talk about the technology. So there you go. Cloning an animal.
You make up your own decisions for yourself there. They say that a man who represents himself in court has a fool for a client. With certain industries staring at major reformation with the onset of AI technology, methinks a good barrister will never be out of work. However, preliminary legal advice, at the very least, has just become a smidge more accessible with a new free online AI legal assistant, Matt.
It's quite interesting. We know that story we did previously about some lawyers that got in a bit of trouble where they used ChatGPT to put together some notes, and it just made up a case and said, in this particular case, Eddie versus Dickerson, this is what happened, but it was a made-up case by ChatGPT.
Was it made up, or did it pick it out of a story that had been published online?
Might have done
like
that,
some fiction.
Yeah, that's right. So it was a fictional case, but whether ChatGPT made it up
fictional
or
regardless of where it got it from.
Yeah. So that wasn't a good example of using generative AI to be your lawyer or to help that. And that was lawyers using that particular one. But LawConnect, and many people might know Christian Beck. He won the 2023 Sydney to Hobart race, and LawConnect was the name of his yacht. So you don't win that race without having a couple of dollars behind you. So he's probably worth $700 or $800 million, and he's made his money. I know there's a bit of software that we used to install for clients when we're doing network changeovers called Leap, which was their practice management, a legal practice management software. It does billing and calendaring and a whole range of different things. So I think he made most of his money out of that. So now he's at the point going, okay, either how can I help society or how can I make more money? I'd like to think it's how can I help society? And so he's created LawConnect, which is basically an AI-driven platform to give you free legal advice. And you think, well, the business model for that isn't great. Obviously, it's leading to something. But at the moment, it's free legal advice, and then you can get your first iteration of that legal advice. And then if you want to go further than that, then LawConnect has some lawyers available to you. So maybe it's a marketing program to get you to be able to take the first step and then move on from there. But something like a will, for example, it talked about the fact that many people don't have a will or don't have an up-to-date will. Things might have changed. They might have had an extra child. Their child isn't in their first will, whatever it might be. Creating a will with AI, I reckon, would be one of those almost boilerplate things you could put in. You could put a few details in. Who do you want your estate to go to? Do you want any particular things of relevance to go to certain individuals? And then it could create a will based on that. And so I thought that was a pretty good use of it. And some people don't go and get a will done because they think, well, I don't want to spend all that money with a lawyer. And what am I going to get out of it? Well, nothing. It's when I die, so who cares? Let someone else sort it out after that. That's not a good attitude. I'm just saying some people take that attitude. So doing wills, I think that's a good example. And then you might want some expert advice, so you get the qualified lawyer to do that afterwards. Christian Beck does talk about the fact that there is a lack of legal professionals in Australia and the world, so that's obviously an issue. And legal fees for sometimes things that are fairly simple seem to be exorbitant. If you're getting someone to represent you because you've been wrongly accused of murder, then sure, charge me a lot of money because I want to make sure I don't go to jail for this thing that I didn't do. But if it's something that's relatively simple, something where you're just putting together a document to lend one of your kids some money, or as I said, a will, something like that.
Or just getting some advice on a situation that's occurred somewhere and where to go with it. And my own family's been in a situation of that recently where we just needed to get some advice whether or not we had some legal standing.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I had an interesting one the other day where a friend of mine sold his car, filled in the right paperwork, as you do, and then you send in that information to the local motor registry. And then he received a speeding fine about a month later. And so making sure that it was known that it wasn't him that did that, it was the new owner of the car, and he'd filled in the right paperwork. And, well, you don't want to be charged for that fine, and obviously the other person hasn't done the transfer registration yet. So, again, that'd be something where it's a fairly simple one. To me, it's a black and white case, but you still need to make sure you've got the law on your side when you're going down that path.
Exactly.
So sounds quite interesting. It's available now. LawConnect, all one word. Go and search for it. You can go and have a look at it. You can use it. I can't give any recommendations about it. I haven't actually played with it myself yet. And just be careful if you do start to get bombarded then by, okay, you've used LawConnect, now come and use my services. Obviously, at some point in time, I think they would get to the point where they would charge some basic fees to use it. Is it just a lead generation tool?
Yeah.
I'd almost be a bit cynical if it was. I'd actually be more comfortable if it got to the point where there was a base fee. You paid an amount to be a member of it, or you paid per advice, if you like, and a small fee, $20-$30, because if it's all being driven by AI, it's really the return is not creating a lot of extra work for it. So quite fascinating where we're going with AI.
Wait to read the reviews on that one then.
Yeah, that's right.
Agriculture can be a tough game, a cruel game even at the best of times. When Mother Nature smiles upon you, the markets may make a nasty turn. When the market is good, though, Mother Nature will throw a curveball that you never saw coming. Anything to level the playing field is a gift. And perhaps that's why farmers are the most often the first to take up the tech. No surprises then that Aussie hazelnut farmers have turned to robotics to minimise the amount of attrition that they suffer from birds, Matt.
It's quite interesting. I didn't realise this, but in the 7 commercially produced tree nuts in this country, poor old hazelnuts, and I do like my hazelnuts, but poor old hazelnuts are last. Oh. So we import 6 times more hazelnuts than we produce. And you would have thought in Australia you could produce enough hazelnuts surely for our meagre population, but we can't. One of the issues is that hazelnuts orchards are attacked relentlessly by birds, and so some farmers choose not to be in the industry and use other production methods or other types of nuts, for example, or other things they might grow in their orchard, because hazelnuts are just so susceptible to birds.
Yeah, right.
When you break down the numbers, we produced last year 6,500 tonnes of hazelnuts. Compare that to 140,000 tonnes of almonds and 70,000 tonnes of macadamias. And I apologise not for having a non-SI unit here. I'm using tonnes, so I'm not comparing that to weight of airships or something else that we might normally use.
Yeah, how do we picture that?
That's right. So that's quite fascinating. Now, I've actually been down to this area. CSU have got an agricultural area in their Wagga campus that's used for research in ag. And CSU down there are working with another organisation, AgriFutures, who have provided some funding to attack this problem with robotic dogs. So they've tried things like drones. I'm sure they've tried scarecrows, but scarecrows don't really do much, do they? I don't know they really even scare a crow.
And there's the classic old one with a shotgun that sort of fired a blank at random.
Yep.
Just to scare birds away for other industries. I know that's used in other industries.
I reckon birds are smart enough that they look around and go, no, we didn't lose anyone. That was just a fake. So in we go again. And so in this particular example, rather than trying the netting or the drones that they've actually tried a robotic dog that walks around on the ground. That's better than a drone, because a drone can go up for a certain amount of time, but then it's got to come back down again and recharge. And then you start to have multiple drones and it starts to become very complicated. One robotic dog can walk around for a long period of time. It can have enough battery life to walk around. So it walks around, and then when birds start to come in, it's clever enough to see the birds coming in and start to jump up and bark. Now, the birds could probably work out it's not going to jump high enough to get them, but just the threat of that dog there is enough that these birds apparently are saying, I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to go and attack another crop somewhere, another orchard somewhere that doesn't have a robotic dog walking around. So early tests at this stage, proving very positive. It seems like it is getting good results. Again, $2 million of funding from AgriFutures to keep developing this, but it might not be that far away before we see hazelnut production going up, and you go to visit a hazelnut farm and there's a robotic dog patrolling the orchard.
I want to see that. That's really cool.
It is, that's right. And you can imagine the power you could build into that dog to make it jump fairly high. Now, I'm not thinking they're jumping 8 metres in the air and jumping and getting a bird there, but if it just jumped up 1.5 metres, maybe 2 metres off the ground, that's kind of getting up around the level of where that orchard where the nuts are.
And making the noise and the movement combined.
And surely you could record a very aggressive sounding, scary dog, and that recording is going to sound the same to that bird as the real dog. So they see something that looks like a dog, it jumps up high, it barks like a dog. Well, let's go and find somewhere else to go and steal our nuts from. So quite fascinating.
Yeah. The Happy Feet films popularised the conservation movement at our global poles and brought to light Antarctic ecology for movie lovers the world over. Penguins as a species were no longer just a quirky exhibit at the zoo, but they had names like Mumble and Memphis and Ramon, and personalities bigger than an iceberg. But it's been 13 years since Happy Feet 2 came out, and things have gotten a bit quiet for penguins. For ecologists studying penguins, it's very difficult to given the isolated and prohibited environments that they come from. And this is where a bit of AI ingenuity comes to the fore, Matt.
We're seeing a bit more with citizen science, aren't we? If you remember when the solar eclipse went across America, maybe 6 months or so ago, there was a lot of citizen science around that, and there were organisations out there encouraging people to take photos and upload them so they could actually track information about that particular eclipse. So citizen science the advantage of that is that you've just got numbers. You've got
Yeah.
lots of people there. And if you're a researcher, if you're a university, for example, and you wanted to send a team out to research something, it's expensive to employ those people to go out there and spend all the time they need to gather the information.
And a lot of it's just sitting around staring and waiting for stuff to happen.
I remember seeing early David Attenborough films, and I'm thinking there must be a team of videographers. It's not just David, obviously, he just happens to come across a lion in the wild. There must be a team or teams, plural, of videographers out there just waiting.
Yeah. And they would be lying there in the bush or on the cold, ice shelf there, just waiting for something to happen for weeks and weeks.
That's right. And then they bring it back to David and he goes, great, I'll use that 8 seconds.
Yeah, that 8 seconds is
well
really
done.
good.
So in this particular case, there are people who visit Antarctica. Now, there's a whole range of arguments about whether or not tourism to Antarctica should be allowed. Is it damaging the environment? Is it good that people can see that? I won't get into that argument, but there are people who visit now as we speak.
Is the big ice wall going to be exposed and we'll realise that the Earth is flat?
that's maybe,
another reason why they don't let tourists.
Maybe that's a much better reason than all the other reasons. But at the moment, people are visiting. They haven't discovered the big drop-off at this stage, so they're still looking there. But, of course, they take photos.
Folks, for anyone who's discerning out there, I apologise for that last comment.
But obviously, if you saw some penguins there, you'd be taking photos. Fantastic. So they've now trained an AI tool to look at scientific photos, but also tourist photos to get an idea of the size of the colonies, where they are, because obviously they move around. And they're actually one of those areas that the whole penguin ecology responds very quickly in good and bad ways to climate changes. So scientists are saying that by looking at what the penguins are doing, we're actually probably getting early indications of how much of an impact you're seeing at Antarctica from a climate perspective. Before a whole shelf falls off, a whole ice shelf falls off, you see the penguins starting to move away from that area because conditions are changing. So quite interesting. So anyone that does visit Antarctica, I'd encourage you to go and look at Stony Brook University, upload your photos there, let them be analysed. They're just wanting to get as much information as possible. And just imagine all those people that are visiting all those photos. In the past, it would have been a pretty clumsy process to go through because you'd have to get the films developed and scan them and all the rest of it. But now they're all there. People are uploading them to social media. They're doing a whole range of things.
Stitch it together as well.
That's right. And historical photos as well. So if you went and visited Antarctica 5 years ago or 10 years ago, they're after those photos as well because they can add to that picture and how much it's changed over years. So quite a good concept. I do love citizen science. I love the fact that we've all got this wonderful little computer in our pocket now that can take pretty good quality photos and can be used in a whole range of different ways. So almost encourages me to go and visit Antarctica.
Amazing there. Here's a story straight from the pages of a spy comic. Crank up your paranoia dial to 11, folks. It's a device that uses radar and AI to tune into people's mobile phone conversations. I believe it's commercially available, but I could be corrected. But as of Christmas, you can be one step closer to becoming an amateur private investigator, or maybe just a very intrusive neighbour, Matt.
I can't think of any good reason to use this technology.
Seems like just naughtiness.
That's right. Security firms, they said, might be interested. Governments might be interested.
Yeah.
What they're doing is they're basically using radar and using the frequencies around 77 to 81 gigahertz with the radar to basically capture sound vibrations coming out of the speaker on a smartphone. And I'm not talking about speaker phone. I'm talking about while the phone is up at your ear, there's enough noise that comes out of that, obviously, for you to hear. But you walk a metre or 2 metres away from someone, well, you can't hear what's going on unless you get those people that I have a name for that I won't use in polite company that walk along the streets of various cities with their speakerphone held out in front of them talking, and you're thinking, don't you know you can just hold it to your ear? Or maybe the people worried about radiation. I'm not sure. Yeah. So
the ones with the foil hats.
I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people who just hold it to their ear like normal people. But this is quite interesting technology in being able to pick up that from a distance via radar. So it's not hearing the sounds per se, it's picking up the vibrations of the speaker on the speakerphone enough that they can make out words with reasonable accuracy. So in the tests they've been doing so far, just testing on a normal smartphone, they just grabbed a normal off-the-shelf smartphone and they used the technology to do it. They got word accuracy of 50%, character accuracy of 67%, which I found that interesting. Maybe when they talk about character accuracy, maybe it was if I said the alphabet rather. But see, most conversations you're saying words. So
Yeah, that's interesting. Unless character, they were just trying to judge your character while you were talking.
Maybe. Now, I do think of the Seinfeld episode, and I can't remember the name of the episode, but there's a Seinfeld episode where there's a friend that can lip read, and so from across the other side of the room, lip read, and they get it wrong. And of course, a whole range of things happen because the lip reading is wrong. So at 50% accuracy, you might be listening across the other side of the room and go, World War III is about to start because I just heard on that phone call that this and this and this was said, which could be completely wrong. But again, this is early days, so it's able to work in a noisy environment. It's able to work if you've got a crowd of people around. As long as you can get direct sight to that phone, it's able to pick up enough from that to be able to actually work out what's going on.
Wow.
Now, you see in the movies where you have some sort of parabolic dish and a microphone at the front of that to listen to a conversation that's 50 metres away. Now, that's a bit different. That is actually trying to pick up the audio, the actual sound, sound waves. That's right. And it's just trying to focus those sound waves a bit better using that parabolic dish. This is doing a little bit differently. This is using radar.
Those dishes seem very obvious as well.
They do a bit, don't they?
To anyone walking past.
What's that guy sitting over there?
Why are you pointing a radar dish at that guy over there?
That's right. So this is very subtle. And again, I just can't see any other reasons but dodgy reasons you want to do it, unless you're trying to prevent World War III.
For a while there, Wikipedia was able to legitimately claim a high degree of reliability. At one stage, it was estimated that 97% of the information logged on the Wiki site was accurate and things were looking pretty good. I reckon 97% is pretty good. Well, things have changed again for Wikipedia, and AI has been making significant contributions in recent months. Matt, many people chose Wikipedia as a key source of information in the past. What's happening to our collective knowledge base now?
Do you accept Wikipedia at school as a valid resource if it's quoted as
if it's all by itself, if it's not supported, no.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
so we look for Wikipedia and something else to back it up.
Yeah, right.
But we're not going to write something off if they've used Wikipedia alone. If they've used Wikipedia at all.
Yeah, right. Okay, so it seems like it's a reasonable resource. And of course...
well, that's what in the past, until I knew about this.
Yep. Oops, sorry. But the interesting part with Wikipedia is it's almost citizen science, isn't it? You've got information that's put there and people go, no, that's wrong. This is what happened in that year. I mean, I do love the Spinal Tap war, where there's the Spinal Tap site, which if you look at it sometimes, it references a musical band, and at other times it references a torture device. and that comes down to the editing wars that sometimes happen on Wikipedia. But excluding a few examples like that, it's usually pretty good. People are now using AI to generate some content, and they did some tests recently. They looked at all pages published in August 2024, and they used some AI detection tools. There's two that are typically used, either binoculars or GPT-0 are two that are typically used to detect AI creation. And when they used those tools, they found that 4.36% of all English-generated pages in August 2024, and we're talking about 13,000 pages here, 4.36% were generated by AI, according to those tools. So it's probably 4.36% plus or minus a bit, but it means that there are people out there using that. Now, when they analysed it further, they found that the pages that were talking about, Wikipedia pages that were talking about businesses, small businesses, or promotional content for someone, in other words, someone who's put a site up about themselves, they were often generated by AI. Political pages, information on politics, were often generated by AI as well. So there are particular types of things. So if someone says, I need to get a post up there that gives me a favourable political angle, I'll just generate that with AI and that'll be fine. So it's a bit of a concern. Now, we know that sometimes AI will pull information off the internet. Well, it does pull information off the internet, including Wikipedia. And we've seen before what happens when you photocopy a photocopy. You keep doing that, the quality degrades. We've talked about a story before where using AI to generate AI, and then you keep doing that, you get to the stage where you generate rubbish. So if you use AI to generate Wikipedia and then Wikipedia is a trusted source by AI to get information, suddenly you start to get AI getting AI and you get to be a bit of a problem.
And there's a Michael Keaton movie out there that you can go and watch just to see how badly this goes.
Yes, quite possibly.
Multiplicity,
actually.
I think it was called back in the day. Yeah.
So what do we do about it? Well, I suppose this comes down to the Wikipedia editors out there, the ones that are legitimately editing these pages, and if they can start to pick up AI-generated content or things, again, as I said before, things that are politically motivated, small businesses, promotion, that type of thing, and really have a good look at these. Are these pages there for information that's of use to the public, or is someone trying to push a particular angle or push a particular agenda and using Wikipedia as part of that? And I think Wikipedia's been good at avoiding that so far. Can it keep doing that? That's a really
That's the question, folks. Yeah. Enter at your own will.
So we are
Your own
relying
caution.
now on Wikipedia editors to counteract some of this infiltration of AI. But wow, AI is big, powerful, and convenient.
It is.
Individuals, good luck.
We've entered a new age, haven't we?
We have indeed.
Are you worried about your kids having too much screen time? Now, my grandparents used to tell me that if I watch too much TV that I get square eyes. Well, if Meta has its way, then we'll do away with screens altogether. They're developing a pair of glasses that will become our screens, and we'll just wear our screens all the time. Connected all the time, folks. Now, does that give you a headache or what? How's this going to pan out, Matt?
Well, AR is a big thing. There's no doubt about it. Augmented reality,
Yeah.
taking the real world and incorporating that with the virtual world. Fantastic concept. Now, Meta is very keen to do this. Meta, the owner of Facebook, is very keen to do this because they don't have a smartphone, and they see a part of their weakness is that you've got other companies out there with smartphones, and maybe they can do things to influence the market using their smartphone. So let's get rid of smartphones. Getting into the smartphone market, where we've seen Google with their Pixel have a bit of a problem getting into the smartphone market. It's not easy to break in to such a well-established market. So you almost need a game changer. Well, that game changer may well be augmented reality glasses. So they've got their Orion, which is their latest version of their glasses, and essentially you've got a pair of glasses that look like a thicker glass or thicker glasses than normal, thicker rim glasses. Some people choose to use thicker rim glasses. Fantastic. They look a bit like that. What have they got in them? Well, you can use a wrist device that you put on to then give instructions to your glasses. You can use audio. You can talk to them to do things. But for example, you can be on a tourist trip and you're standing there in Tokyo and you look over at a particular building and you say, I want to go up that building there. Can you tell me what that building is? And looking at it, the glasses will see what's there, and then you'll get some information about that building that's 258 metres tall, and the entry is at this level, and you pay this much to go in and go up to that building. So you'll get that information as you walk around. I mean, what I love the idea of is I meet lots of people on my day-to-day basis, and sometimes I'll come across one of those people that I've met previously, and I'm probably meant to know the name of that person as they walk up towards me. I would love to have a pair of glasses.
We've all been in that moment of panic.
That's right. I could see you walking towards me, and up on screen flashes James Eddy. You know him because you sit down with him each week and do a podcast. Ah, James, how you going?
It's really rude when you don't remember his name.
That's right. Yeah, you can't just get away with mate all the time. So having information given to you on screen quickly would be, I think, in some circumstances, fantastic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's probably a bit weird when you've just got so much information being presented to you all the time. At least you've got your phone in your pocket and you can pull that out, and it's a conscious decision to go and do that.
Yep.
But having that fed to you all the time, interesting.
I just think from a teacher's point of view, yeah, you'll have some kids using it for good, but then you'll have some kids using it for bad.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So Meta spent billions on developing this. Snap, of course, have got their AR spectacles as well. Now, Snap's AR spectacles are probably more about taking photos because you want to be able to put them on the Snap. That's their focus for that. Meta, is their focus to put it on Facebook? I don't know. I think their focus is to try and do away with smartphones and have this as the way of the future. Now, they actually need in the glasses, which are quite lightweight, 98 grams, you've also got another device somewhere on your body, which is something that's about twice the size, or it's about 200 grams it weighs, and it's somewhere else on your body, and that's doing the hard work, if you like. That's doing the computing work and sending the message to the glasses themselves, so you're not having to have the processing power in the actual glasses themselves. So, yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, I saw one example.
It's just like Tony Stark in Iron Man.
It is. That's exactly. You think about that. Think about a jet pilot that's got lots of information presented to them as they're flying their jet.
Yeah.
It's that type of thing. You've got this information there that you may or may not want. I saw one example which I found fascinating. You put the glasses on, you looked at some of the items in your pantry, and then you start getting a recipe come up inside your glasses about what you could make out of those things in your recipe.
I just get more of a sense as we go on that, like muscles, brains need to relax as well and need some rest time, right? And so when you've got these things on and they're just constantly feeding information and whatnot, and it's always just there.
Well, if nothing else, one of the things you can do with them is play Pong. There's an AR version of Pong that you can play by moving your head to move I assume, a simple paddle up and down.
That's what I'm going to be doing with any time off that I've got. I'll be playing Pong. People will be watching me from a distance going, why is he rattling his head?
I was about to say, I want to see that. You just got this person who's up and down. Oh, damn. And you go, what is that person doing over there?
Yeah. And in the spirit of improving technology by stealing ideas from nature, drone and robotic technology may get a boost by copying their motor vision from cat's eyes. Matt, cats have that distinctive vertical slit pupil rather than the round hole that most other mammals have. What's the advantage here for robotics?
We do steal a few ideas from nature, don't we?
A lot.
It's almost like nature's had a fair bit of time to develop things and get things right.
Yeah,
that's right. And so we just take the idea at the end. So I've never actually thought too much about cat's eyes, but they've got two features that make a cat's eye better than a round pupil, as you said, that most mammals have. The first thing is that slit, that vertical slit. Now, that slit can close and open very quickly to reduce the amount of light. So the cat can go out in bright sunshine, it can reduce the amount of light there. And we always have this idea that cats can see well at night time, and they can see well at night time. So they can open up that slit, which lets more light in, that's fine. We can also open our eyelids. But they've also got a reflective layer that actually captures more light. In other words, whatever light's there, it comes into the eye, but also this reflective layer bounces that light in further, so they actually increase the amount of light they're getting into their eye by nature of that reflection.
So why can't the cat work out that it's my head that it's walking on in the middle of the night when I'm trying to sleep?
It knows it's your head. It knows it's your head, and it's saying,
I'm going to stand on this guy's forehead.
That's right. I can do that because I am the boss, because everyone knows, anyone who's got a cat knows that the cat is the boss. Take those same concepts and put them into the world of drones or autonomous vehicles or just technology, a lens that you've got that can have a slit, something on aperture that can close and open very quickly, and that makes sense. And we think about a smartphone. Smartphones are actually pretty good on the camera's outdoor light, the amount of light outdoors, but then when you go indoors, they're not so good. A traditional camera still seems to be better indoors. So by building in both a slit, an aperture changer, if you like, and also a lens that has some sort of ability to reflect light to make it work better in low light environments. So they've actually stolen both those ideas from a cat, and they've started incorporating those in a lens. And already they've been doing a bit of testing around robotics, around drones, to see how well they can see at night and at day. Autonomous cars, I think, will be a huge usage for this, because anytime you look at a rear view camera on a car, or even just looking at the view you get in a car that's got cameras built into it for autonomous driving, and at night time, it's sometimes a bit grainy. And you look outside yourself and you go, I can see outside okay with the amount of light available. I look in the image that's in my car and I go, that's pretty, how you going? Actually, in Japan, one thing I noticed, which I haven't seen in Australia, a lot of the rear view mirrors, so I'm talking about the ones in the middle of the car, in between the passenger and the driver, a lot of those were fed from a camera rather than a traditional mirror. Now, I was in a lot of taxis in the time I was there, so maybe, because there's always people sitting in the back of the taxi, maybe they've gone to a lot of those. But at night time, they were pretty hard to see. On the small amount of screen space you've got on a rear view mirror, and the nighttime vision, I looked at that and went, I still think I'd prefer a mirror that I can see past the people's heads in the back seat and actually see out the back.
Yeah.
But that was obviously something where if you had a better camera, but in the middle of the day, you don't want it blasted with light so much that you can't see anything. So a combination of those two, I can see lots of usage, but autonomous vehicles in particular, I think there'll be a big usage for that sort of lens.
Solar technology continues to grow and grow, and Australia proves to be a very fertile environment for developments in this field. While opposition to solar farms focuses on the repurposing of hectares upon hectares of land, recent developments in the field aim to repurpose exposed surfaces in urban environments, and that is set to get a boost with new super skinny and flexible printable solar panels, Matt.
I remember at your school one time we had that gentleman who was doing a trip around Australia.
Newcastle Uni was helping this gentleman do a circumnavigation of Australia using solar panels.
Yeah, and he had them rolled up in the boot of his EV, and then he'd get to an area and he'd roll them out and charge up from there, and then away he'd go again. So that was fascinating. But I remember in the discussion I had with that particular gentleman, the efficiency of those solar cells was very low. And he had large surface area, that's fine, because you're not just sticking on the roof of your car, you do it when the car stopped, and that rolled out, 20 or 30 metres from memory. So that was a first stage, that was one part of the development, but we've gotten much better now. And CSIRO, who do some wonderful work in Australia, have now got a $6.8 million facility that they've opened up in Victoria that will print flexible solar panels. Now, at the moment, they've gotten up to about 15.5% efficiency. So that's not bad. Compare that to rooftop solar, not quite as good, but when it's a flexible solar panel.
Well, and this group that we visited 2 years ago, I think they were talking about 5%.
Yeah, they were very low, and they were overcoming that by just having more of them, so a bigger surface area. That's right. Whereas these solar panels are obviously getting much better. The system that they've got can produce 14,000 test solar cells daily. And the idea of this is they're trying things. Okay, let's change that. What about if we do this mixture? What about if we just do it in this way? And then they'll pump out some and test them, and then they'll pump up some. And so they've got this ability to print lots to keep testing them. The whole idea of CSIRO is that they don't want to go into commercial development. They want to develop the technology and then license that to someone who's going to go and produce that, a bit like the Wi-Fi signals that we all pay a little tiny bit to CSIRO when we're using Wi-Fi because of the license development they've got with the various manufacturers around the world. So I thought that was fantastic in terms of being able to develop this further. And then you start to think, well, where are you going to use them? What's the advantage of a roll-up solar panel, apart from someone wants to put it in their boot of their car and then roll it out when they're travelling around Australia? You've got lots of different outdoor applications that I can see, whether it be a greenhouse, whether it be camping, having a tent made of a flexible solar panel, for example, in defence when you've got to be able to keep things compact and then get to an area. Disaster relief, imagine having the ability to bring in solar panels when power's down in some area, and then you just roll out these huge rolls of solar panels to produce electricity. Agriculture, I can see lots of different agricultural examples where you might want to use it. But even in urban construction, as you said, you've got lots of different funny shapes in urban areas.
Right.
So imagine just rolling out panels across these areas. I think it's a really good concept. I think it really complements normal rooftop solar. I don't think it's going to necessarily replace rooftop solar, because rooftop solar is more efficient and probably a little bit cheaper. And you're okay if you've just got a flat roof, then putting on something that's stiff, as in normal solar cells, is okay. But flexibility with solar panels, well, a whole range of different areas can start to have stuff rolled out.
Just opens up a whole bunch of new options and bring it on.
Yeah, and one of the things I think that happens often with technology, and this will be an example of that, CSIRO will develop the technology. They'll get it better and better. And then someone will come along and say, I'd like to license that because I'm going to build a blah. Yeah. And people go, oh, that's obvious. Why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
But it'll be something there that you'll go, a flexible solar panel, that's perfect. And I'm thinking of large scale there, but we've also seen small scale where people have put solar panels across the band on a set of headphones to charge up the headphones. Yeah. So you get something like that that's very small as well. So a whole range of different applications.
Yeah, there's no end to how clever we can be, and so it just takes a bit of imagination, doesn't it?
Yeah, or just ask AI.
And that's all we have for you today, folks. Cue up the sound of cartoon footsteps and doors slamming. We are done. Thank you for another sterling episode of Tech Talk, mate.
Yeah, now I'm just going to go and try this LawConnect. I want to get a bit of legal advice.
Yeah, right,
about
okay.
How much abuse can I cop from James when I don't recognise him when he walks towards me?
Well, for me, I'm giving 2 stars to cloning pets, 1 star for spying on phone calls and having a screener on my glasses. But I'm giving 5 stars to watching penguins, robotic bird dogs, and coating all upper surfaces with solar panels, starting with my bald spot. Thank you for tuning in to Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson once again, folks. Guaranteed when he's not out and about traipsing the globe and smiling for photos, you know he's locked away in a small room under the stairs, piecing together the best stories for the very latest in technology and science to make each episode better than the last. I'm your host, James Eddy, and it is my pleasure to be a part of this tidy little homegrown podcast each week. We're terribly chuffed that you've joined us again this week, and the only thing that would make it better is if you brought along a friend for the ride next time. Share the wealth, folks, and we'll see you again next week.